Hello everyone, I am back with another episode of PMP Exam Prep Power Hour. And as usual, our goal is to help you in exploring some of the PMP related topics. And I'm your host, Saket Bansal. I do teach people, professionals, project management, scaled agile, and program management. So here my focus today is more on project cost management because we got that feedback sometime back in the last week, but we can talk about other stuff as well if they can help you in getting PMP certification. I usually start with my topic, but I can pause in case someone has a ready question to start with. We can start with that as well, and then we'll explore more topics related to our PMP exam. So we should be live on LinkedIn as well as on YouTube. And if you want to communicate any of your question, concern to me, you just need to put the comment. Yeah, if you are watching on YouTube, put it in the chat. Yeah, there is a chat section, live chat happening. If you're watching us on LinkedIn, then you can definitely click the comment on the LinkedIn event and it will reach me. Hopefully, sometime LinkedIn has a glitch, but hopefully it will reach me. I will keep checking at the LinkedIn as well as to my shared platform where I get this information in a one go. Okay, so thank you for joining. And I have my cost management topic to start with. Yeah, so I get started, I guess, and we see if we have any query as we go along. Now, project cost management and the focus of project cost management in various projects. So personally, when I teach professionals project management, many face difficulty even appreciating this topic because in their day-to-day projects, they don't do cost management. Now, that may brings a question, what kind of projects are more prone to a stringent cost management and what kind of projects may not require that kind of cost management. But for PMP exam, we do need to understand it, but at the same time, we need to relate to our day-to-day working as well. So if you're following adaptive life cycle, there is a less likelihood of your organization focusing on cost management. Because in the adaptive way of working, the whole setup is something like we are figuring out what we want to work upon and we will explore things as we go along. We do have some kind of control in place, but basic focus is not on adhering to cost, but basically we are exploring the value discovery. We will figure it out as we go along. That's a kind of a mindset. Now, if you're working against the contract, say my company is a provider and we do projects for client, then you follow adaptive, most likely you have a contract which is more flexible, something like a time and material. When you have a flexible contract where client is taking a decision about what to do next on a very, very frequent basis, your organization or client may not ask for stringent cost control related reporting or estimation from you. That's the one situation where you may not see in your practical work cost control becoming very, very important. The another possibility is sometimes your work is more people intensive, time intensive. And actually there is a clear correlation between time and money. So many a time your management may not want to get you as a project manager and the team thinking about money. They want you to focus on time. And with the help of effort and time, they already have a calculation in their mind and they understand how it is impacting them as a cost. So sometimes when you have basically a development or people-oriented work only, and it is a people putting their hours and that is something helping you to deliver the project, those organizations may focus on effort management, time management more, and they do their internal calculation for the costing and may not require a project manager to think about costing. Yeah, so these are the places where you may not have that much cost control. Where you have a cost control or cost management very stringently follow, the places where you follow a kind of a fixed price contract. So say your client has given you a fixed price contract. Now your management wants you to focus on execution. And in this particular contract, it's not about people and time. It is a material and some kind of other things also need to be purchased, rented. And they want to make sure that as a project manager, you make sure we achieve some good margins. Because if you end up spending more, it goes directly from the organization pocket. So such kind of projects usually follow predictive life cycle, usually. Yeah, so such kind of project will have a stringent project cost management processes in place, and if you end up working in those kind of projects, you subject to do a stringent cost management. So that's how we can see it, and we can relate our day-to-day work as well as with the PMP exam. Yeah, so that's the starting point. Now, assuming that you are working in the project where cost control is important, so that is where our starting point. If it is not important in a real world, then you don't worry about it. But if it is important, how do we go forward with it? Now, be it a cost, even if you are following a fixed price project, all estimations are done progressively, and you understand it very, very carefully that all estimations are interconnected. Cost, schedule, scope, everything is interconnected. So we do this estimation in the progressive manner. So in the initial stage, when you are doing high level estimation, you are preparing project charter, you are coming up with the high level forecast, you may end up doing rough order of magnitude or a parametric estimate, which is basically directly looking into the characteristics of the project, looking at some of your historical data, or using some kind of models. Models means you have a parameters which need to feed it, and based on your historical data, you can tell how much it will cost. So using those pure historical data without model or historical data with model, which becomes a parametric estimate, you will forecast the cost. But as we go along, as we get into the details, the management do want to know how are we doing at a cost level and what is expected based on today's visibility. Even if your client might be already giving only a fixed amount of money because you already did a fixed price contract with them, still, as we going along, management wants to know, are we going as per margins or our margins are shrinking? So it is always a duty of a project manager. We share the latest information and trend with the stakeholders. So as we go in detail, once our scope is well understood, our scheduling is well understood, we end up doing detailed cost estimate using a bottom-up approach. And that detailed cost estimate from a PMP exam perspective is the one which becomes your baseline. So now the second question may come, is it only one time? I did a parametric initially and then I figured it out and I did a detailed cost estimate. We did a baseline. After that, we forget about doing cost baseline. The answer is no. Usually, periodically, you need to revisit. Minimum at the end of a one phase, all estimates has to be revisited. And then why? Because we are bringing the latest information in account. What all assumptions were valid, we are considering them. If some of the assumptions are not holding true, we are considering them. And based on today's visibility, we are bringing options and reality in front of our stakeholders. If we are spending more, we should know now rather than we end up knowing after spending more. So we need to revisit. The project is always done in the uncertainties. So project estimates are expected to be revisited. There is a point, if you have a baseline estimate, the revisited estimate is not coming as per the baseline, it may be considered as a variance and may not be considered as a good thing as a project management and delivery. But still, if it is happening, it is happening. We need to face the reality and find out how do we deal with it. So it's a progressive, it's a continuous work, it's a never-ending work. You keep re-estimating and reforecasting as per the latest information throughout the project life cycle. You do have a one baseline version, but you keep forecasting based on your current visibility. So that's the second point we have explored in our project cost management. If we keep these things in the mindset, we are good with 5 to 10 questions which you can get in the PMP exam related to project cost management. Now, integrating scope, cost, schedule, and other aspects like risk management, training, communication, people, all are interconnected. Whatever you do in your project, it has a cost implications. So say if I want to hire an expert and he can do the things faster, and if I hire say average skill person, he will take more time. It has an impact on resource, it has an impact on schedule, it has an impact on cost, and it has impact on definitely the overall performance of our delivery. So everything is interconnected. In a simplest manner, for a PMP exam, we do see a very clear correlationship between scope, schedule, and cost. So scope will help us in identifying what we should do. Schedule will definitely be a factor of resources which we are putting into it, automation and other things. If you do end up doing procurement, it will have an impact as well. And everything we do is ultimately get converted into the cost. So it is very unlikely that you freeze schedule first and now you are doing cost estimate, or you freeze the scope first and now you are doing schedule and cost estimate. These things are interconnected, or you schedule the team size first, the resources first, and now you are doing the cost estimate. There could be few parameters which are less negotiable. So you may have a situation in a one project where timelines are not negotiable, the cost is negotiable. You may have other situation where resources are not negotiable, but you want to have a timeline flexible or cost flexible. So depending upon my project context, I need to find out which are the parameter are fixed, which are the parameters are negotiable. But we can't say all of these things are independent and they can be frozen in the independent manner. They are interconnected. If we are not changing a one variable, we need to change other variables, but ultimately we need to come up a synergic output which will be matching the cost, the schedule, as well as the other aspects of the project management related to scope, resourcing, risk. If you have a risk, you are trying to mitigate that risk, it will require some set of activity which will have an impact on cost. If you have a lots of risk in your project, you want to keep more contingencies for risk, it will have an impact on cost because you need to put more contingencies. So all of our project managements are done in the integrated manner. If you follow PMBOK 6 language, we can say project integration management, and all of them some come together to form us a complete plan. So it's an integrated topic. Now, after understanding where the project costs are more relevant and how do we progressively estimate them and how they are interconnected with other aspects of project management, now we are looking into the term called cost baseline. And what is this? Why do we do it? So cost baseline is not a one number. Yeah, many a time this is something I have to clarify again and again to the professionals who are doing PMP exam. So it's not like my cost budget is 500,000 or 500,000. You have that number, but that is not cost baseline. That is, in our project management, we call it budget at completion. At the end of the project, this is what you are expected to spend. And that's a one number. So then what is the cost baseline? You can say that is the cost baseline. Cost baseline is a time-phased expense plan, time-phased. So it is like in January, I am spending 100. In February, I am spending another 100. So by February, I will be spending 200. And by the end of 6 months, I need a 500,000 budget. So it is a time phased. We call it as from where you get a time phase? Connected from the project schedule. So you have multiple activities which you want to do in your project. Each activity will be consuming some resources, and based on that, the cost estimate will come for those activities. I can see on a time-bound manner how much expenses we are making, and then I can prepare a cumulative line which shows up to this date, this much money you can spend. Up to this date, this much money you should have spent. That is my cost baseline. So cost baseline has a time factor along with it, not just the money factor. So say if I am tracking my variance in the month of January, and my project budget may be 500,000 overall. My say budget at completion, let's use a specific language. My budget at completion could be a 500,000, but I am tracking the budget on the January. I am not comparing with that 500,000. I have to compare the number which is expected to be spent by the January. So my cost baseline for that moment is not 500,000, rather the number which is expected to be followed by the time we have that particular tracking happening. So cost baseline is a time-based budgeting number, not just one number. Another important thing is there is a significant value of cost baseline because it creates a benchmark. So in our predictive life cycle, these all conversations are more relevant to predictive life cycle as I started with. In a predictive life cycle, we prepare our detailed plan and we are expected to adhere to it. We are expected to be in line with it, or that work as a benchmark for us. So whenever we are deviating, we probably need to find out why we are doing this deviation and what should we do about it. So that's how we do a variance analysis. So for that purpose, cost baseline becomes an important line, important parameter, which we as a project managers are expected to trace or track throughout the project life cycle. And that's why it is important for project tracking. Somebody will say, can we change the baseline? Yes, you can, which will have a process of your change control. There is a possibility where the previous estimates are not at all relevant. So why to track something which is not going to happen? So say I initially started thinking about 500,000. Now I know it is going to cost us more than 1 million. And there are some things which are beyond our control. So better to track the new thing with a new understanding. So we may have a re-understanding with our stakeholder that is called rebaselining. And then only we can track it with that particular new number. But till the time the rebaselining has not happened, we will follow our original cost baseline. If we have a rebaselining, then we will follow the new cost baseline. So it's the time phase number. It is something which helps us in doing the tracking. And this is something very, very important when we are following a predictive life cycle, because more or less we follow the cost baseline and their reporting. Now, many a time, this is the another confusing thing which comes in people's mind. What is a relationship between cost baseline and contingency reserve. Can I have a contingency reserve? Should it be shared with everyone, or it should be hidden and should be in the project schedule? So now this thing depends upon your organization practices in reality. But for PMP exam, here I can talk about PMP exam, you can definitely have a contingency reserve. Yeah. Now somebody will say, how much? Is it 10%? Now that could be your company policy. From a PMP exam perspective, there is no percentage defined. It should be based on the situation you have in your project. So we call it a reserve analysis. We look into uncertainty in our projects. So if you have a lot of risk, a lot of uncertainties, you want to keep some kind of more contingency, you put it. Yeah, based on your overall risk assessment and uncertainty assessment, you will put the number, and that should be agreed with the stakeholder, and that could be your contingency. So as a project manager, for the known risk, for the accepted risk, I am putting these contingency. I can put it at an activity level or at a WBS level. Overall, in my project, I have estimations coming based on bottom-up estimate. So if I'm doing 10 activities, I will estimate what all money I will spend for each and every activity. I will sum total it. And on top of it, I will put a contingency. I can have some activity level contingency also, depending upon my cost management plan. But I can have a contingency which I can justify based on my reserve analysis. As a PMP exam or a good project manager, this information should be visibly separate. So I should be clear that these are the 10 activities which are expected to cost me this much, and this is the amount contingency we are putting because of these risk and surrounding situations, and this is my true information, and that's why I'm asking for an approval. Please give me a baseline where you include the 10 activities sum total and contingency into it. Yeah, so that's a contingency. So in a simple word, contingency reserves are part of your cost baseline. They are estimated by the project manager with the help of doing reserve analysis. They will be part of cost baseline, which means when you are doing variance analysis, they are part of your approved cost baseline. That's the money you can spend, approved budget. And if the risks and other things are occurring, you as a project manager feel free to use these contingency reserve because you already planned about them in advance. So that is something, a money in your pocket to take care of emergency situation, which is as per the agreement of the stakeholder. Many a time when you are doing project reporting, you will be also talking about how good we are doing in the contingency, how much contingency reserve is still left. We may be having those kind of tracking as well. Yeah, so that's a cost baseline versus contingency as well as including contingency. Now we have another parameter. I think the cost management has a lot of terms, and this is called project cost or project budget. Yeah, project budget is the important word, and project budget versus management reserve. Now this is the another confusing thing. So assuming my project based on my bottom-up estimate and contingency reserve comes as a 500,000, and I asked my management and they approved it. So that became my cost baseline. So our story is over. Now my management might be running two projects. The another project is also asking for 500,000, and the another project is project B also got approval, and that is also a cost baseline. So my management has invested 500. It's a 1 million investment is already done. In my management budget for a 1 year, they also have a 200,000 left. They have a more money left. Now some third project comes and says, give me that 200,000, I want to do it. Now my management will say, guys, I don't want to get into a problem. These two projects are saying they need 500 only. But looking at my assessment of uncertainty, I want to keep on top of their cost baseline 100,000 reserve for A project and another 100,000 reserve for B project. So I don't want to invest these remaining 200,000 anywhere. I am putting for each project 100,000 as a management reserve. So when I'm doing portfolio level budgeting, when I'm looking at an organization level budget allocation, from an organization perspective, for a project, we have allocated 600,000, not 500,000, because 500,000 are coming as a cost baseline and 100,000 I have kept as a management reserve. So when we use the word project budget, it is from the perspective of portfolio, it is from the perspective of sponsors, and that project budget includes management reserve. But important parameter to keep in your mind from an exam perspective, that management reserve is not available to you as a project manager. You can access it with the help of some process, most likely a change control process. You need to go to a sponsor and says, we are stuck, our cost baselines are not getting achieved, we need more money. So sponsor will say, yeah, that's why I kept some reserve. Okay, take it from here, like that. Yeah. So maybe they read some justification and process documentation for it, but they will say, okay, this is something you can take it because we kept it for you for your such kind of situations only. So that is something called management reserve. So most likely the management reserve will involve change control process. Yeah. Most likely means because exactly it depends upon change control plan, but most likely it will be involving. And this is the money. Now somebody will say, can as a project manager, I know what is the management reserve? So if that is the question in the PMP exam, my answer is yes. Now in your company, depends your enterprise environmental factor. Sometimes it is shared, sometimes it is not shared. But in general, if the question is not giving any clarity, I assume I do have a visibility about management reserve. Some people start thinking, if I know management reserve, I will probably start using it and misusing it. So always keep in mind, my goal is still cost baseline. Even if there is a management reserve I'm consuming, my project will consider as a not managing cost well if we breach the cost baseline. Yeah, so that's the term we can keep in mind. Now we do have a few more terms to cover. Let's see if we have some questions. I see some questions coming in. So let's see if we have a thing. Okay, so that's a sharing only. So Anil is sharing contingency reserve is for plant risk and management reserve is for unexpected set of activities. So we can say, okay, so any specific number or cost baseline contingency. So is there any question? Let's say if as a PM, I'm coming up with these numbers, are there any just a forecast number or can we arrive at a specific number for cost baseline contingency? So you need to have a reasoning for it. Yeah. So now how do you do it? You need to figure it out. There is no defined rule, but your organization will definitely have it. So what I am understanding is, how do we figure it out how much contingency reserve we need or how much management reserve we need? Yeah, probably that is something you want to call it. Yeah. So we can say it depends upon your organization processes, but as a project manager, the major input is uncertainty in your requirement, your risk, the risk exposure you have, the total risk exposure you have in your project, the purchasing you are making, the volatility in the market. So you need to make up your forecast based on these parameters, clear, justifiable, and based on that you will get the contingency reserve. And similarly, at a portfolio level, management will also do based on the uncertainty in that particular project context, they will put the management reserve. So if we have been doing the similar kind of work for a while, our reserves would be less. If we are getting into something which is not yet done before and we have a more uncertainty, our management reserve as well as contingency reserve is expected to be more. Yeah, so that's there, but there is no formula, but you need to come up with a formula. Yeah, you need to have a proper reasoning for it, but there is no there are models to forecast uncertainty. You can do quantitative risk assessment. You can use expected monetary value simulations, Monte Carlo analysis, all can help you in forecasting the management reserve, but no specific recommendation from PMP perspective. Now here the question is, so BAC is a baseline plus contingency plus management reserve? No. Yeah. So BAC is budget at completion is a final point of a baseline only. Yeah. So baseline is budget at completion. So baseline is a line, January, February, March, April. Whenever I reach to the final number of the baseline line is a budget at completion. That's it. And baseline includes your activity-based estimation and contingency reserve. So contingency reserve estimated by the project manager. So baseline includes activity-based estimate plus contingency reserve. And the final point of the baseline is a budget at completion. Yeah. So that's a thing. Yeah. So you can say that's how you can say. So the final number, the total sum is your budget at completion, which includes activity level estimate plus contingency reserve. But it does not include management reserve. So management reserve is part of a project budget. It is not part of baseline. It is outside your project cost baseline. It's outside your cost baseline. It's a part of project budget. That's the term we use. Good. Yeah. So I continue. If anything else, so you can put the question. I know there were many topics, so I took a pause and try to see if you have any query here. Okay, so we are done with reserves. We are done with the management reserve. Now let's focus on funding limit reconciliation and milestone alignment. So that's another thing people sometimes get confused. So think like this. the project team itself is an entity, yeah, and management wants to give you some money and say, take this money and do the work for a while and then come back, we will give you next money. Yeah, so in a whole project they may put some milestones where they review your project progress and approve next phase budget, yeah, because they may not be able to track your expenses on a daily basis. So these points and amount of money you need approved on those points and reconciling them so that your day-to-day expense matches with that limit is called funding limit reconciliation. It may look like a cash flow analysis as well. So for example, you are a student, you live your independent, you are studying, and your parents are expected to send you some money for your day-to-day expenses. Yeah, so you are spending money daily, but they will not give you the money for the next 1 year. So for example, they give you money in the beginning of the month, and they give you a money which is sufficient for your whole month to run. And by the end of the month, they will review what happened, what left, what is the overall performance, and based on that, they will give you next money. That's a funding limit reconciliation. So we can say month beginning is my milestone review, and I get the money which will help me to run how much money which will help me to run a 1 month. And after that, we have a review and we decide what is the next money has to come, and based on that, I go forward. Something like that. So similarly, in our project also, so even if I have an overall 500,000 approval, I will say, okay, give me 100,000, which will be good enough for me till the time I reach to a feasibility closer. Yeah, so I might be doing feasibility analysis phase. As an example, it's not necessary each project has a feasibility analysis phase. Assuming if I say that feasibility analysis phase should be able to finish with this 100,000, so give me this. And then once it is done, then you can review what we have done in a feasibility analysis, and then you can approve another 200,000 for my execution phase, something like that. Yeah, so that is how we call it funding limit reconciliation. Now somebody will say, oh, that's just a mapping. Sometimes it can change your project schedule because of that. So say you can say, I'm agreeing to give you 500,000, but in the beginning I can only give you 50,000, and I can give you remaining money after 2 months only, because we are expecting cash flow from the customer. Customer will make a payment, and then only will allocate our agile our teams for working on it. Many a time when you work for the external customer, we try to manage our project activities in line with the payment terms in the contract. So whenever we expect a payment, accordingly we will do the things so that that money is good enough to run a particular phase. And by the time we finish the phase, we expect the another set of money should come so that we continue our project. Because as a company, as an execution company, I will be trying to manage my cash flow also, so that I keep charging my clients, which help us in executing the project. So this all reconciliation is called funding limit reconciliation. Many of you who work in a pre-sales and all, you know how do you design your payment terms. You consider all these things in mind. You want to take some advance, so that gives you money to execute a particular duration, and then you ask for second money based on a milestone. So this all is a funding limit reconciliation. You can do it within your organization also, even if you don't have an external client in picture. But if you have an external client in picture, you may consider those factors as well. So that is called funding limit or a milestone alignment or funding limit reconciliation. Now, moving forward, so there is a topic around earned value management. So you need to consider that when you are preparing for cost. So I published 4 videos on earned value management in our last week. But first 2 are good enough for you. The remaining 2 are too advanced. They are not nowadays getting tested in the PMP exam. There used to be a time in our PMP exam, we used to get 12 questions to 15 questions on earned value management. Nowadays, people find 1 or 2 questions, and none of them required calculation. So that's the current state. Because tools can do this job, so PMI experts, then, rather than we check your skills, we better rely on tools doing it. So you don't have to worry about earned value management calculation that seriously. But in a simplest manner, earned value management helps you in tracking cost variance and schedule variance at some extent. There are some error in schedule variance, but it helps you tracking these 2 things. And they give you a monetary number. It is a way to track how are we adhering to our cost baseline. So you can say earned value management is a tool which helps me in tracking adherence to the cost baseline. More about it, please follow those 4 videos which I have shared in the last 1 week. You can just follow our YouTube channel, and if you see the videos, you can find the numbering of 1 to 4. The first 2 are more important. The third and fourth, in case you want to go deep, you can do it. Usually that deep understanding nowadays is getting checked in the program management only. In a PMP exam, they are not checking it. They are checking in a PGMP exam that much detail. Yeah. From an exam perspective, yeah, you just need to know two important parameters about earned value management. What is called cost performance index and another is called schedule performance index. So these are the indexes, and if you just keep in mind, if they are 1, they are good. If they are more than 1, then we are very good. 1 means we are on plan. More than 1, we are doing better than the plan. Less than 1, we are bad. If you just have that understanding, you are good for PMP exam. So what does that mean? So cost performance index less than 1 means we are spending more money than expected in the budget for a given work. So say if the 10 work items were expected to finish in 1000 and we might have spent 1200 for finishing that 10 work items, that's why our cost performance index is less than 1. But if the 10 work items which were expected to finish in 1000 and we have spent 1000 only, then our cost performance index will be 1. If the 10 work items we have finished in 900, it was initially expected to finish in 1000, but you saved money, then your cost performance index will be more than 1. So whenever you have a more than 1 cost performance index, which means you have some flexibility, you have more money. If needed, you can spend somewhere if the question is indicating it. If it is a less than money, you need to manage your cost a little bit carefully. That's how we can say it. Now, similarly, for schedule performance index, if it is more than 1, it means you are going faster than initially estimated. If it is less than 1, it means you are going slower than initially estimated. If you are in a 1, you are good. Yeah, so that is how you interpret. And if you just keep this in mind, your 2 or 3 questions which you get in your PMP exam will go right. You don't have to do calculation. The number will be more or less will be given to you. Yeah. So that's the idea. Let me see if we have a questions. I see. Now, I started by explaining that this whole thing we are focusing more from a predictive life cycle. Yeah. So as I said, in the agile way of working, the cost budgeting and cost estimations are not that much critical. They are not that much critical. We are not saying they are not relevant, but usually not that much critical. The product owner or the senior person who is working with us, they need to keep this thing in the mind. Many times the project team and project managers don't have to forecast it, because at every iteration they will decide what they want to do next, and they may want to run 2 more iterations. We'll do a 2 more iteration, which initially we may have thought about only 1 iteration. Now we may want to do. So we can say the whole idea of project cost management may not make much sense when you think in the agile way. Don't try to match it too much in the agile manner. But in a simply said, yeah, I think that's another question also. So I started with that, both of you, that we are talking about the context where we are focusing on stringent cost control, which is a predictive life cycle. Now, does it mean in adaptive life cycle cost is not a concern? More or less, the answer is yes, but cost is done at a very high level. So what we can say, oh, this is an initiative we want to work on, and we can allocate 10 people for 1 year to achieve it. And we will be, now the idea here is cost is directly associated with who is working and per iteration cost. So we hope in the 10 iteration we will get this. So I can say, okay, what is my expense? Per iteration, I am spending 1000. So in a 10 iteration, I will spend 10,000. So I am allocating for this idea, this high level goal, 10,000. Now here, I am not getting into the details. This idea will require 20 features or 15 features or 10 features. That is something the product owner will figure it out. So in a simple word, you can say product owner got an approval to spend 10,000 and he has got an approval for 10 iterations. Now he has to make sure that during that 10 iteration, he makes best use of it. Now, if he can't make a best use of it, he need to go to appropriate person and get the extension for the further costing. Now, during the execution, very unlikely that you will produce a report saying 3 iteration has went and this was the expected money to spend and this has been spent and here we are losing the money. Very unlikely, but you can make those kind of report. It is needed. Why unlikely? Because in the agile way of working, our assumption is capacity is going to be fixed. So money will not change. Yeah, output, what will come will depend, outcome will depend, but at least expenses are fixed because we are assuming the fixed team will work for a defined duration. Yeah. So how do we do budgeting in the agile way of working? We figure out our high level goal. We have a business case around it. And then we think about a capacity that, okay, these 10 people will work on this area for 1 year. And every iteration review, we want to check, are we making a progress? Are we still going in line with the business case? If we are going in line with the business case, we continue. If we are not going in line with the business case, we drop. but it is not at a feature level, it is at a directional level. And if you want to modify our business case, if you modify our direction, we do it. Yeah? So that's the understanding we can do. There is a possibility product owner or a customers, whoever is involved, they can make those decisions very frequently. If I am a vendor and I am working for someone and we are following Agile, then again, from an understanding purpose, I can say we are following time and material project. We will keep submitting our timesheets to the client. If client keeps liking our work, they will continue it. Initially, they are planning to do it for 1 year. In a 1 year, whatever they get it. But we have given a forecast that we are allocating 10 people for 1 year. This is the money they will cost. And based on that, they will probably figure it out if they want to do an extension or not. Yeah. So that is something at a high level, our forecast for costing. We need to understand costing is not a concern area in Agile, because our focus area there is we want to get the value delivery. We want to solve the problem. And we might be working in a time and material space. So it's a business decision which is happening on a frequent basis. Whereas in a predictive life cycle, from an understanding purpose, again, there could be exception here and there. We take it that we are working on fixed price project. If we don't follow the costing, our company will suffer. So we need to make sure we are doing as per our understanding. And if there is some deviation has to be done, we better figure it out in the advance. Yeah, so that is how we can say it. So this is how you do it. Yeah. So one of the important thing, very unlikely you have a cost baseline in Agile way of working. Very unlikely that you have a scope baseline in Agile way of working. Yeah. If the question indicates somehow, then it can be done at a release level or higher overall level. You can have a cost baseline. Yeah, can have, but very unlikely. But you will not have a schedule scope baseline. So you can say, I can baseline that we will spend 10 months doing this, but I don't know exactly what I will do during that 10 months. Yeah? So scope baseline is not possible in the Agile way of working. If the scope baseline is not possible, then cost baseline is at a higher level. It is not at a content level. So we have another interesting question. If your CPI, SPI is less than 1, how do you respond to the situation? Depending upon 4 options. Yeah. So yeah, it is very difficult to tell. We need to see the question and make minimum assumptions and respond to it accordingly. That's how I can say it. So say if we need to say one by one, cost performance index less than 1. So if it tells that we are wasting some of the resources, we can probably release them. We have a material, we have a machine which is not utilized. I will focus on how can we release it. There's a possibility. There is a possibility I can go to different vendor. This vendor is expensive. We can find a better alternative. There is a possibility we can automate some of the work, which can make the manual labor less. That's a possibility. We can innovate. We can outsource. We can say we will take a built-in component. So it depends upon the options. Depend upon the options. How do you save money? So it's like you have a plan to spend 2,000 in a month, and you realize at the mid of the month that you have already spent 1,500. You just left with 500. Now, what will you do to survive in the 500 for the remaining 15 days? So it depends. Yeah, it depends. Sometimes you can say, oh, this was wrong. I need more money. Sometimes you can figure it out. Oh, why I'm spending these things here? I will not spend this money, and I will make sure that I can finish my month with the remaining 500. So we need to see the question, and based on that, we need to decide. Yeah. Similarly, for schedule performance index less than 1, we need to speed up. Automation can speed up, outsourcing can speed up, training can speed up. Many things can speed up depending upon what option is shown in the question. Okay, looks like LinkedIn points are not coming. Let me see if it is error or something. No, yeah. So hopefully this is giving sufficient info, but if you have any follow-up query, we focus on it. So in a simplest manner, in Agile, iteration review, product owner and stakeholder will decide what they want to do, and backlog refinement will be another activity. And based on that, our funding or our budgeting will keep evolving. Retrospective has less to do. Yeah, retrospective is more like a team level activity. Budgeting and retrospective less match. But if the question is coming, review and backlog refinement, they are good match with the Agile thinking related to budgets. Yeah, I was just responding to the question comment where we mentioned retrospective as well. Okay, so if there is anything which can help you, we can explore here. Beyond cost also we can discuss if the cost is done. So I pause for a while, see if there is something else, we close our session. So in the recent days, we have publication of various earned value management videos. You can check it. So there is a question is what's new in coming in the PMBOK 8? No idea. As of now, I have not done a study. And second thing is, for a PMP exam, you don't have to worry about it, because PMP exam is based on PMP exam content outline. Currently also PMBOK 7 does not cover PMP exam content outline. It may cover part of it. Now the approach of PMI is only giving high level info, not telling us in detail. So we have to figure it out more details with the help of other books or other materials. Yeah. But yes, yeah, it could be an area of interest. But for us, till the time exam content outline is not changing, we have to focus on current exam content outline. And overall, we need to find out as we evolve with the new content outline. Yeah, that may not cover in the whole PMBOK material, whatever comes in. Yeah. So I'm struggling. Any good video on link for specifying different processes, tools, and technique? So see, if you are referring to PMBOK 6 processes, tools, and technique, they are not important for PMP exam. Yeah, that's the idea. Now, we do have for our classroom content, people who attend our class, we do have a detailed PMBOK 6 videos to build the foundation of project management. And we do remind them to look at them so that they understand the perspective, but we never remind them to memorize it. For classroom, we focus on the PMI content, which covers the exam content outline well. So that way, I would say that if you have a specific topic, you try to search our content as well, but don't worry too much about the process, tools, and techniques and input output. Yeah. So we can say cost estimate and budget estimate can be used interchangeably. You can say so, but you need to be little bit carefully. Yeah, a little bit carefully. Especially the word project budget, you need to be careful about it, because project budget talks about the management reserve. Yeah, but when we talk about cost estimate or budget estimate, you can probably use it interchangeably. Yeah. PMBOK 8, no idea. I'm not tracking PMI's updates, so because it is not relevant for PMP exam, so I'm not tracking. Okay, so my reminder to all of you, please do follow the exam content outline. And if you are not aware, we do have a detailed exam content outline based videos available in our YouTube channel. So you can check all the 35 tasks and related videos to it. Yeah. Okay, what kind of matrices, status report, cost budget we can generate and produce? For a PMP exam, it is all about earned value management. Yeah. So in a simplest manner, you will be producing at a cost baseline level, not at a project budget level. So we need to consider one thing. Tracking of a project budget is not a project manager job. That's a portfolio job. My job is basically focusing on variance against the cost baseline. So my report will be all like a cost variance, schedule variance, estimation at completion, to complete performance index, all those things which you learn with the help of earned value management. The 4 videos we shared are the tracking tool which is used for cost tracking at a project level. Yeah, my level, baseline level. So I will be tracking against baseline, not against the project budget. Yeah. So that's an important reminder. So as I said, the agile and earned value management are not very compatible with each other. Yeah. So if you say that I have to use it ETC, EAC in agile, then you must have a reason for it, because the whole idea of earned value management is scope oriented budget. Yeah, it is just not a budget. So which is not compatible with agile way of working in general. Now, if you have a compliance requirement, there is a specific thing, then you need to find a way. One of the possible way people can do it at a release level, they can say at a release level, we were expected to do 100 story points. So you are not saying we are expected to do 10 features. You are saying we were expected to 100 story point, and we were estimating that this 100 story point will get done in a 10 iteration, and in a 10 iteration, we will spend $10,000. So you can say $10,000 were expected to give 100 story point. If they are not giving us a 100 story point, we can calculate the variance and estimated completion. So that way, in some of the compliance oriented organization, especially at a program management level, where I need to do a program management level, a program level costing information, I may use these technique or to come up with the agile way of calculating earned value management. But in practice, as well as in the exam, very unlikely people trying to do earned value management at an agile level. But I cannot rule out. I can't say, oh, this is not possible. It's possible at a release level. We need to find a way. Yeah. Not possible is a difficult, a dangerous question in case of PMP exam, but not used frequently. So we can say quality is directly proportional to overall BAC as it impacts benefit management plan plus, correct me if it is wrong. No relationship. So say, what is quality? In a PMP exam, quality is as per delivering as per customer expectation. And that is non-negotiable. Yeah? But I need to find a cheapest possible solution to provide that quality. Yeah? So if my budget is going high, it doesn't mean I will reduce the budget by reducing quality. No. Until unless if I recalibrate with my customer and says this is the new expectation you can make, then it is okay. But till the time the expectation remains the same, I need to deliver the same expectation to find out innovatively how can I find a cheapest solution. Yeah. So quality is non-negotiable, but quality is not absolute. Quality is a relative thing, and I need to make sure I achieve that relative thing as per my expectation in the minimum possible cost. Yeah, that way. But we don't say, oh, let's reduce the quality and deliver it cheap. At least for PMP exam, you won't say it. Yeah. And in the practice as well. Yeah. So you don't have to calculate EAC, ETC, VAC in PMP exam. You may end up calculating it in a PGMP exam if you end up doing at some point in time. Though my 4 videos, the last 2 tell you how to do EAC, ETC or VAC calculation. But for a PMP exam, you just need to interpret CPI and SPI. And you know, whenever they are less than 1, they are not good. Whenever they are 1, they are as per plan. Whenever they are more than 1, you are doing great. If you just keep this information in your mind, 1 or 2 questions which will come showing these indicators will be good for you. So say before 2021, these kind of questions used to come because the composition of exam was not allocated to agile and people domain. Now, good percentage of our PMP questions are expected to go in agile and PMP domain. So in a predictive life cycle or process oriented thing, the budget itself is limited. So they need to test the critical aspects rather than making you do calculation. Most of the people who share their success stories at various platforms, they tell that they never used the calculator in the exam. So you don't have to worry about it. Yeah. So how do we use T-shirt estimate and when it should be used? Yeah. So in agile way of working, you need to estimate your work item. Yeah. Now you can use variety of way to estimate your work item. If you want to categorize your work into small, medium, large, extra large, because you don't want to get into too much detail right now and you will do it at a later stage, that point in time you can say, okay, these are the 3-4 categories of work categorization we will do, segmentation we will use, and we will call this kind of work. You need to define what is that kind of work: small, We will do this kind of work medium, this kind of work large, and this kind of work extra large. And based on that, you do the categorization. Why do we do it? It helps you in preparing the high level plan. Yeah. So do you take them final? No. Later on, as you get more details, you will split them further and you have a further refined planning as you go along. Yeah. Thank you, Pankaj, for joining. Yeah. So that's the idea. I know a lot of ideas in cost estimation and all, but I try to keep it simple. But if you want to get into complex, then yes, the 4 videos which I shared are good enough. More than those 4 videos and our today's conversation will not come in the exam. So if you get what we have discussed in the last 50 minutes and you check the earned value management first 2 videos in detail, because you need to get a little bit technical details about what is earned value and what is actual cost and what is planned value, then you can call it. Yeah. So we have a question. We are saying, is there any mindset for predictive and adaptive methodologies or any word on these topics? My request is, don't categorize your project management into predictive and adaptive. You are doing work for achieving project value. There is a possibility one project may start with adaptive and may get converted into predictive, or a vice versa. If I am working with 10 people, it is not like if we decide to use Agile, I will become a servant leader. If we decide to use predictive lifecycle, I will become a command and control leader. No. Yeah. In general, I always focus on servant leadership. In general, I always focus on collaborative working. So people mindset is pretty much compatible irrespective of lifecycle. Now, on the top of it, PMI will remind we need to apply situational leadership. Yeah, that is important. Now, this situational leadership, in many peoples, in many lecturers, they try to make it as a compartmentalization of situation, predictive, adaptive. But we need to go in little detail rather than saying predictive, adaptive. Yes, there are few situations which are more aligned to adaptive. There are few situations which are more aligned to predictive, but it is about situation, because we can't just take an abstract view. We need to get into situation. So what is the situation? Whenever we have a capable team, where project manager know less than the team members, we have a knowledge worker, they can collaborate, they are motivated, they can plan together. I will try to delegate and I will always focus on servant leadership. Yeah. Whenever I have a situation where I am the smartest guy in the room, everybody is expected to just follow my instruction, then I will tell them what to do. Yeah. Now, sometimes people say this can only happen in predictive life cycle. Yes, most likely, but hybrid could be here and there. So, but at the same time, in a predictive life cycle, also I can have a smart people working with me where I don't want to tell them what to do. Yeah. So I need to see how I work with people. That's the important aspect. Yeah. The another aspect could be, if we can compartmentalize predictive, adaptive, that will be variance and baselines only. We can say, yes, predictive life cycle is always focusing on plan it, track it as per variances. If variances are happening, you are doing something wrong, you need to fix it. That is very clear. Yeah, so don't try to compartmentalize predictive, adaptive when you talk about people domain. People are collaborative. But when you focus on process domain, you can compartmentalize it. But again, there is a question mark. Sometimes it could be hybrid also. So just by saying a one word in the question, which is showing predictive lifecycle tool, I cannot assume that whole process will be predictive lifecycle. Yeah. So there could be a uses of say quality management plan in the adaptive processes, and we call it hybrid. So I can't say, oh, since quality management plan word came, I will assume they have a baseline plan and they will follow it and I will have to track the variances. Not necessary. Yeah? But in general, predictive is more about having a plan and tracking the variances. Adaptive is more about figuring out what we do. Yeah? But we take each question as a hybrid until unless we get a clear signal, which means we are willing to find out anything. All options are good till the time they fit well in the context of the question. Yeah, so that way I think I can clarify. But again, more practice our questions. We have around 180 plus questions on YouTube. We have a 50 dedicated questions on Agile, and 180 includes Agile and people domain. So they will help you to get a better understanding. Yeah. And PMP exam is pretty straightforward and easy exam, provided we just get it, the mindset, or I would say the focus mindset of the project management, not adaptive predictive, mindset of the project management, right? And how do we get it? Based on exam content outline. So when we understand exam content outline well, We understand what is the roles and responsibility of project manager. In a simple word, role and responsibility of project manager is deliver value, focus on project objective. Everything I can use, everything is negotiable, but my value delivery is not negotiable. My customer quality is not negotiable. Yeah, my stakeholder expectation management is not negotiable. So I need to focus on whatever expectation we have set, we need to meet it. Yeah. Okay, anything, last 5 minutes before we close this? Okay, so thank you everyone for joining today. It was interesting discussion on project cost and related topics. As I mentioned, you can check out our more videos related to on value management to complete this particular topic. I was thinking of making a flow video also, but I could not get a time. Last time I make it like the way we did in the procurement. Last time we spoke about procurement, so hopefully that also helps you in getting. Thank you. So thank you everyone for your participation, and see you again sometime in the next PMP exam prep power hour. Yeah. Thank you for joining.